another episode of inspirED. I'm Sarah Loudon from Total Health Conferencing, and today I'm joined by really incredible people as we spotlight medical education through COVID-19. So obviously this is a near and dear topic to me, owning a small medical education company that really focused before all of this happened on small live events. And had to quickly transition into all of the things we'll talk with you more about tonight. But I'm joined by other leaders in the medical education arena in oncology, especially as we kind of talk through to an audience of physicians who are in the know, as well as other event coordinators in other specialties, how all of us pivoted, transitioned, and innovated through this time. So I'm gonna start by just diving right in, and rather than me doing the introductions, I'm gonna call on each one of you to tell us who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about your company as we'll get into deeper dives as we go along with the interview. So Kathy, I'm gonna start with you. If you would introduce yourself, your organization, and a little bit about it.
Absolutely, thank you. And first of all, thank you, Sarah, for the opportunity. This is really quite fun. It's really great to see everybody and have that connection. My name is Kathy Clarke. I'm with SageRock Advisors, and we're headquartered in Marlton, New Jersey. And we are an end-to-end solution provider for healthcare companies, life science companies, whether they are participating at a medical education event, hosting, or sponsoring. We help them to facilitate all the logistics and kind of like the liaison with all the colleagues that are online here, between the go-between for the client and the med ed companies, et cetera.
Well, thank you so much for being with us. So you'll do a little bit of a spin on the classic medical education story, because you really support your, like you said, the go-between between organizations, pharma and diagnostic organizations, and then what we do, which is producing medical education events. So I love having your voice as part of this podcast. Rita, if I could go to you.
Definitely. So, hey everybody, I'm Rita Piotti. I work for OncLive events. I'm the Associate Director of Sales there. A lot of people know us for two reasons. One, through our parent company, Michael J. Hennessy, or MJH Life Sciences. We are the largest privately held publishing and multimedia company in the US. And we have our subset of OncLive, or Oncology Live. And then OncLive specifically, we handle everything live programming. So when it comes to the PER, or Physicians Education Resource CME accredited events, we handle the exhibits, the non-CME opportunities around those, advisory boards, and all of that good stuff. And then we also go to all your major conferences, your ASCOs, your ESMOs, and we work with our partners to kind of connect them to their doctors and their target audiences through live meetings and live events.
Well, I mean, Rita, I feel like every oncologist, oncology nurse, pathologist, every healthcare provider in the space is familiar with OncLive and PER for different reasons and different events that you put on. And I love too that we have such a diverse representation of the types of medical organizations, because PER really specializes in larger events, like your Miami Breast, where you have, over 1,000. I think this year you made it just before.
We got right under, the last event. I really think that happened in March there.
Yes,
it was a very different time then.
Absolutely, it was like you squeezed right in right before the whole thing turned on its head. But these have really come to be meetings that community practitioners depend on in getting, especially very well curated information. So thank you so much for being here with us, and we'll get into OncLive and PER and what services they provide and how you all have changed in the way you reach physicians as we go on. Teri, if I could go with you.
Thank you for allowing me. It's an honor to be here. So I've been in medical education since 1987. I started with the University of Miami. That was my initial background, and then went into business on my own in 1994. We own two companies, and one is the Medical Educator Consortium, which is the joint accredited provider for CME and CEUs. And we also have meetings, events, and conference coordinators, which is actually the logistics and conference management side. We develop and produce with academic centers such as City of Hope and UC Davis, University of Miami, and so on, oncology and surgery and other meetings that we produce. And that's about it. I don't know what else I can say other than I started when I was 5.
Well, we will definitely get back around to it. You know, Teri, I always find that her meetings have such a personality, and it's really unique to attend like the New Orleans Summer Cancer Conference or the California Cancer Consortium, or even the Hawaii meeting, is it Primo? Primo in Hawaii. They all develop a personality where people know that they're going for medical education, but they're also going for the networking, the fun, the different things that they incorporate. And I love that because it's a getaway and you put it on your calendar. You know you want to go there. In fact, one year, this is a funny story, one year we were running a program and it fell on the same weekend as the New Orleans Summer Cancer Conference. And my husband says to me, I said, oh, don't forget, we're going to be, you know, in Huntington Beach, let's say. And he goes, wait, no, I have it on my calendar. We're going to New Orleans. And I said, no, we're not going to Teri's meeting. I have a meeting that I'm running. And he goes, well, I could go to Teri's meeting. And I thought to myself, that's a perfect representation of her meetings because there's such a personality behind them. So Teri, I love that. And we'll talk about how I think that matches you and how you incorporate that into your meetings. And Ted, last but certainly not least, in a sea of women tonight, tell us a little bit about you and PeerView.
No problem. So I'm Ted Singer. I'm president of PeerView Institute for Medical Education. We are exclusively in the CME space, so we only do accredited education, and we've been around for about 16 years. We do a mix of live in-person events, at least we did prior to the current quarantine, you know, a mix of satellite symposia. We also do a lot of institution-based meetings, series like Grand Rounds, and then a whole bunch of different enduring material activities that are typically online activities, and you know, across all tumor types and hematologic malignancies. So we try to do it all within our space.
Yeah, and you do such a great job. In fact, I remember meeting your team for the first time and finding it to be so unique, the way you incorporate your information in a setting where you really are able to deliver exactly or precisely the content you want delivered, because you're very careful in selecting where your audience is coming from. And I really love that, because I think a lot of us could kind of take a note from that, in that audience does matter. And we'll get into that as we go along. So I'm going to start with the hardest question. Let's start with the hardest things, and then we'll end with the easy and fun things. COVID-19, I feel like I remember the day, you know, people always have these days like JFK, the day JFK was killed, or where you were on September 11th, or, you know, all these like major milestone moments. And I have to say, as the owner of my business, I remember my son's birthday is March 14th, and March 15th, everything changed for me. Everything changed. And you guys probably all have a day where you realized, oh my gosh, everything changed. But I remember thinking, what am I going to do? Like, how are we going to, everything from manage all of the hotel contracts that we have out, manage speaker communication, plan for what type of programs we can offer, you know, think about how we can still reach people. I mean, it was really 2 of the hardest weeks of my life as a business person, those first 2 weeks. I didn't know up from down, and I was just in like constant thinking mode. So Kathy, I'm going to start with you in saying, did you experience that same type of moment where you were like, oh, something's changed? And then right away, what was your, not thought process all the way to the end, but what was your original thought?
Do you really want to know the original thought?
Yes, as do all of the event planners listening. What was your original thought?
It was, okay, this is not normal. This is not normal. And as a small business owner as well, what immediately hit us was postponement, cancellation, postponement, pivoting. We were like, WTF.
Yeah.
Right? And was like, okay, how are we going to do this? Additionally, we had also brought in my mother-in-law to live with us to keep her safe.
Yeah.
Because my family members were still working, you know, and going back and forth to work, and being in Oklahoma, they hadn't transitioned much at that point in time. So because I have such a stupendous team, we literally were on the phone to each other and just brainstorming. How are we going to do this? How are we going to literally hold not just the client's hand, the life science client hand, but we were thinking about you guys too.
Yeah.
We were thinking about the fact that, okay, this is impacting not just life science clients, this is impacting peers.
Yeah.
Folks who we do different things, but we're doing the same thing for the same end result. So we literally just spent the first 2 weeks very similar to what you were saying, Sarah. I mean, we just broke things down, and we just figured, okay, how do we bring it back up? Virtual engagement was not new, but understanding a methodology to embrace it was very new.
Yeah.
And understanding how to align the thought processes within our clients' thinking, what was the same as a live event versus what's the same in a virtual, and what's different. And what really for us was resonating extremely, most importantly, was compliancy.
Yes.
You know, making sure that, you know, it's one thing to stand in front of somebody and sit in front of a doc and know what you can say and can't say. Not terribly different than when you're on the intranet, but it is. So it was really getting in with the clients and understanding how will you be communicating, what's going to be your processes, at the same time reaching out to each of the organizers such as yourselves, what's hitting you guys, how are you handling it, and trying to pull together some type of a unified delivery mechanism.
Yeah.
So that the client was understanding what was being offered, and you all were starting to understand what they were willing to do.
Yeah.
And
no,
that was the first couple weeks.
Yeah, I so appreciate that, you know, both from your point of view as being a small business owner yourself. I mean, I think anyone who owns a business, I don't even care what kind of business it was. If it was a restaurant, if it was a sticker store, I mean, it was like, wait, what? When is this over? How long? You know, how am I going to pay the rent? And then all the questions started coming: payroll, rent, supply, like all that stuff. And it really has hit so many people so hard, but I appreciate that right away you were thinking about, you know, your clients on both sides, as well as having to think about your own team, as well as having to think about the home family situation. So I know as we go forward, that story is gonna develop. Rita, you know, you're from a much larger organization that's kind of has a lot of pots on a lot of fires.
Yes.
So it had to have been a moment of, wait, how will we kind of this big ship turn as all of this stuff is happening? So take us through, maybe starting with you individually, what you were thinking, and then through how the team kind of started to feel about what should start to shift.
Yeah, definitely. So I think personally, we started just seeing things shifting at Miami Breast. You know, it was kind of not a good joke, but we were like, oh, you know, doing the elbow thing and saying, just kind of thinking how it's going to change, making sure we had a lot of hand sanitizer. So it's just this like very subtle shift over the few days of Miami Breast that first week in March. So at first it was, oh, this seems like it's going to be a problem, but we can adjust. We can get hand sanitizer to, oh no, we should be going home now, probably.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as that meeting ended, we all got on planes and went home and said, I don't know when I'm going to see some of my clients again. I don't know when we're going to get to collect together like this. So it was just a little scary. It's, you know, we love what we do. We all travel and do this, and we love seeing people, and that's why we're in this industry. We love events. So it was very scary to think that we might not be doing events for a very long time. For me personally, I loved it. And some of my clients, like you mentioned, Kathy, had launches this year, have fantastic new products that are coming out for patients. And how were we still going to get that across to the docs and keep them educated through this? It's, you know, that kind of shift, and just a lot of questions went through my head personally. As a company, and we are a very large ship, I do like to say, while we have, I think, a little over 600 employees now, we still run in many positive ways, almost like a mom and pop shop. So as soon as we realized this was happening, we got all the heads together and everyone kind of brainstormed. Like you said, Kathy, I feel like brainstorming was the name of the game for a while. But we were very fortunate, I will be honest. We have an entire in-house studio team. We have a lot of virtual capabilities. We were bringing in a brand new platform anyway to host virtual meetings like advisory boards. And we have an entire in-house live events team who was able to pivot, and instead of managing live meetings, they were able to do the same meetings, but virtually. So while it was an adjustment and we maybe moved some people's roles around internally, we were very fortunate that we had the capabilities in place. When we did switch to virtual, because people knew the name and trusted us, they were willing to log onto our meetings at first. So I think we did have an advantage there. So we were really fortunate. But I just remember thinking, like, how are we going to be able to effectively connect our clients with these docs? And how are we going to effectively, you know, educate these docs on these new things? This industry is changing every single minute. It's hard to get people sometimes online. So just figure out the best way to do all of these things and keep everyone happy, provide white glove service in a virtual world, which kind of seems, you know, a little difficult or strange because we're used to the face-to-face.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so funny because it being in the biz, I could see everybody, PeerView, Medical Educator, everybody, I could PER, everybody, I could see the shifts. And I knew what those shifts took to get there. And so it really, you know, to see kind of that big ship, make that shift and make it in a way that was seamless to the outside viewer, was really encouraging, because really a lot of it was like I was taking cues from the bigger organizations to say, well, if they can do it and still effectively deliver, it means that there's something still there. And so that was really encouraging. Teri, you know, as I mentioned that your programs really do take on a personality, how have you, or how are you continuing to kind of infuse that in this new virtual setting? And maybe you can talk about your original reaction in terms of what's going to happen next.
Well, it happened the same weekend as the breast cancer in Miami. I was in Puerto Rico. We saw it coming down the pipeline, couldn't stop it, obviously. We had 2 speakers that couldn't make it to Puerto Rico and used Zoom to bring them in. I thought it was going to be 2 weeks, and then it was 4 weeks, and then it was 2 months, and then it's 3 months. I refuse to listen to the news any longer. I don't want to listen to the news because we live in this negative space.
Yeah.
Whether we want to or not, every day the negative space is behind us. It's around us. It's underneath us. It's in our thoughts. And it drives me crazy because I'm a very positive person. And it's very hard for small businesses that don't have a development team or a production team. Sarah, you and I are it. That's it. We're it. There's nobody else. The people that work for us are the ones that do the logistics. We have to think of the strategic plans. And how do we shift our business plan to meet another capability? I started doing an educational resources website last year. Oh my God, what is wrong with people in the technology area? I mean, can't you just do this? No, it takes, I feel like I'm in that, those jokes, which I'm not going to say because it's not politically correct, but how many people does it take to change the light bulb is the kind of thing that I'm living through. It's every day. And I'm like, how long does it take? I've already given you everything. Oh, but you know, you're planning on phase 2. I said, you haven't even finished phase 1. Let me see what phase 1 looks like so I can go to phase 2.
Yeah.
So in retrospect, if I would have pushed it a little further, pushed it faster, I would have already not had all my eggs in one basket. Hello, right?
Yeah.
So now this is what COVID has taught us, is that we can't do eggs in one basket. We have to have several baskets with lots of eggs.
Right. You're absolutely right.
The other one does, right?
You're absolutely right. I mean, it's so funny that you're saying that. And this is why I think this podcast is going to be so powerful, because we really do all come from such different organizations, and yet we've been affected as like a blanket. Like no matter what, you hear Rita talk about, 600 employees at Michael J. Hennessy. They were in the same situation as us with 6 employees at Total Health. With you, Teri. Ted, let's get to you before we kind of dive into what did we do next. Ted, talk to us about the PeerView experience of COVID hitting us, and what was your original thought as we encountered it?
Sure. So, I feel like it kind of rolled in gradually. It's like the news was coming. And is it in the, and granted, obviously, it's not like as Americans, we were getting a very unified level of communication around what was going on, right? So we couldn't really depend on that either. At the same time, at that time of year, like we are rolling with meetings, so like there's conference after conference after conference going on. And we've got people out all over the place who are delivering meetings and then trying to figure out what's coming up next week, 2 weeks from now, like a lot of meetings coming up. And so, I'm sure a lot of people, like, you guys were saying you were at meetings literally as this stuff was happening. Like, Rita saying she's in Miami. We had teams of people in California, and it's like all this stuff is starting to creep in, like one of the big super spreader events in America, one of the early super spreader events was a major society meeting that took place in Florida, right? With that whole story. So we're processing this stuff in real time, and then very quickly it becomes clear that everything's going to shut down. And so one big advantage that we had was I'm in New York, but everybody at PeerView works from home. Everybody works from home. We don't have an office. So we are already set up as a virtual collaboration space. And so in that way, it was very lucky that we were already everybody's used to working from home, and everybody's set up to do that. Now, the complication there, of course, is that people aren't set up to work while their kids are home.
Right.
And I've got I would say, we are a largely female organization. I mean, it's probably, I don't know the number off the top of my head, I'd say it's 80%. And a large percentage of those have kids that are 10 years old and younger, including toddlers, including some relative newborns. And so all of a sudden, despite working from home, people are working from home and trying to parent at the same time. And that all hit like
I don't even know how you do it.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
It definitely was a crazy time. It's so, I'm telling you, it feels like we all work for the same company, and
but just in my favor though, I do have a retired husband. So
it's comparable. It's comparable. Okay.
Yeah, he's probably requires management too,
Yeah.
Those could be worse than a 5-year-old.
I have to write them to-do lists.
Exactly.
Kathy, early on, and I guess, okay, so Teri, you own your company. Kathy, you own your company. Ted, do you own PeerView?
No.
Okay, maybe you and Rita will know this question, but I want to ask Kathy and Teri, right away, did you know that we had to apply for some of the government assistance, like the Paycheck Protection and some of the help assistance that was being given? Like, did you put 2 and 2 together that events might be one of the hardest hit industries? Kathy,
I knew that from the get-go.
Oh, Teri, go ahead.
I from the get-go, and I remember my one of our other businesses is catering, boutique catering. My son's a chef, and he said, we were talking on the phone. He says, "What does this all mean?" And I said, "It means that everything that we know will break down." And hospitality was the first one.
Yeah.
It was the first one to break down.
Yeah.
And it's not going to recuperate for a few years. I mean,
Yeah.
we know that. And I remember, because I remember going through September 11th.
Yeah.
So I remember that particular breakdown. This is much worse than that, because it continues to go on and on and on. And it's in the news every single day. And again, back to my little words, negative space. It is out there. It's continuous. So we have nowhere to go. We just have to invent it. We have to create it. We have to think outside the box. If we didn't think outside the box before, well, you better start learning how to think about outside the box in 101, right?
Yes, no, you're absolutely
How
right.
many webinars have you taken on virtual meetings, on virtual platforms? You're like, I want to shoot myself. I don't want to see another one. And
Virtual fatigue.
it's
Kathy,
Virtual fatigue.
Kathy, what about you in terms of like being a business owner? Did you know right away? Like, were you worried, or did you start thinking about kind of the financial repercussions?
Well, anybody who knows me and you ask would say she's really stubborn. And thank God I have a team, an advisory board that I have had with me since the inception of the company 10 years ago. And I'm hearing from them right and left, are you doing this? Are you doing that? Are you doing this? And are you doing that? And thank goodness, because I'm busy trying to keep the company moving.
Yeah.
And sometimes getting bogged down into the PPP or the IDL and whatever in God's name. I'm ex-Navy, so I'm used to acronyms, but those were just like, enough is enough is enough.
Right.
So they were just basically coming at me very gently saying, please stop. Remember that you want to stay fluid and you want to start moving forward.
Yeah.
You can figure all the details out. So thankfully they were like, let's look at this, let's put this in, let's apply for this, etc. I quite honestly was numb for quite a few weeks because it was pivoting so fast, and we tracked probably about 4,000 events for clients. So we were tracking all these events of what was being postponed, what was being pivoted, and postponing to virtual or cancellation. So we were really just trying to track everything.
Yeah.
But we did end up realizing that, okay, let's embrace the offering that's in front of us.
Yeah.
Because my gut was telling me, especially with the negativity and the fact that we weren't cohesive as a country, we've really got to figure out how to thrive through this.
Yeah.
And so we just put into place those things that we needed to make sure that we could sustain everything.
Yeah.
And my biggest concern, and I'm sure everybody, whether you own the company or not, is are we going to have to lose anybody?
Right.
And I said, I don't care what I have to do. I'm not. I just can't. These individuals are my family.
There you go. And that's so true.
Yeah.
We're
that work with us, have our backs. We have to have theirs.
Yes.
And they're our family. They're not people that just come into work. They're our family.
And you know, that's so, Teri, as you're saying that, and Kathy, as you're saying that, I know in medical education, that's why I already know the answer to this. I know Ted and Rita are going to say, even with their size organizations, it's a family. I mean, you know everybody, you're working with everybody all the time, you know their family situation, their life situation. And so right away, you go into that mind mode of, I want to make sure that everybody makes it through this. And what does through this mean? Is it 2 weeks? Is it 2 months? Is it a year? Like, what does it mean? So Ted and Rita, let me come to you. Ted, you mentioned that many of the people that work at PeerView are women, and that we all of a sudden did become homeschool teachers and cooks, everything else all at once while managing full-time jobs. Ted, I'll start with you. Did the company make accommodations for that? Were you more like flexible with schedules? Did you kind of say, okay, let's first get everybody aligned before we dive deeper into logistics? How did you manage that?
Yeah, by the way, let me just preface this by saying with all my friends here on the phone, I brought up the fact that so much of my work is my colleagues are female. Not to say that they should be the ones doing the homeschooling, but I think we all know the reality of what the heck happens with division.
We do. We're girls, Ted. You don't have to explain. We're girls. Go ahead.
But the fact is that I think if you guys remember some of the narratives when COVID first started and the quarantine, it was sort of like, use this opportunity to, like, you know, enrich yourself. You know, you have all
Yes.
this extra
Oh
time.
my
So,
goodness.
you know, develop that side hustle, you know, like read the great novel, write the great novel.
Go
And, you
get
know,
your
I think
master's
that,
degree now.
right,
Yeah.
right. Learn to play the ukulele. And, you know, so what I felt, you know, number one, we wanted to reassure everyone, like, look, it's tough out there. You know, people are not working, you know, people are getting laid off. And one nice thing about what we have going on is that in our industry right now, things are still operating. So, you know, we don't call, in CME, we don't call them clients, right? We call them supporters. Supporters are still approving grants. And so your job is secure. You know, that's number one. Like, there's a lot to worry about, but we don't want you to worry about that right now. And number two, we know that everyone's got a different quarantine situation, right? Some of you are what we described. You're trying to be the worker and the teacher at the same time, and everything else in between. Some of you are alone, and that's hard too, you know, especially for, I mean, for any age, but, you know, younger people who are used to socializing, you know, whatever. Not everybody lives alone or wants to be alone by choice. And so we just sort of put it out there, like, if you're struggling, please talk to us. Like, don't suffer in silence. And then the third part to what you specifically asked was, whatever your schedule needs to be, let's figure it out. You know, like, we are, I mean, you know, we've got people on different time zones anyway. Like, some people are West Coast, some are Central, some are East. So people are used to kind of juggling stuff, but, you know, the nature of the work is, yeah, right. Like, let's get the work done, but it doesn't matter when it gets done, you know, as long as it's sort of, as long as it gets done. So like flex schedules are fine, but, you know, we also had to recognize that, hey, just because someone's working a flex schedule, that doesn't mean it's a great life to have their time filled from the minute they wake up to the minute they go to bed. So just acknowledging that, like, hey, we know this isn't business as usual, and we know it's hard, and just do the best you can.
Yeah, I think that that's really amazing that, you know, as a company, you thought of those things first, because in all of our businesses, we're powered by people. We're powered on the back end by people. We're powered on the front end by people. And, you know, we don't have that tangible widget that we sell. We sell services. We sell information. So it's so important for us to make sure that the people that are on that back end that are doing the support are healthy to be able to do it. Rita, was it the same at OncLive PER? Was it very much like, let's get everybody to a strong baseline before we kind of start moving forward? Maybe you can share some of the experiences of how a larger company communicates with the team.
Yeah, and I think a lot of what Ted was saying, I think a lot of it really resonated. Like, I think when this started, we all did think, do I need to pick up another language? Do I need to do this? Do I need to? And I was like, okay, no pressure. Everyone relax. Let's calm down. And there's a lot of fear and trying to manage my team, and just, you know, internally you could feel that there was a little stress and a little bit of a shift at first. So personally, as a manager, I really encouraged mental health days. This is not normal. You need the time. Go take a day, take a half hour, you know, be flexible. If you need to take a 2-hour lunch and go walk your dog and just get out of the house, do it. Your mental well-being is more important than anything else. And I really drive that home with my team and everyone I work with. As a company, our HR team, shout out to our HR team, they did all these really cool things. During lunch hours, they would do trivia, or we would do fun movie nights and like stream a movie together for like the kids, so everyone's kids could like log in and watch together, which was really nice that we had people who were focused on just making sure we were feeling good. So I really appreciated that. We really took extra time. Our work is encouraging. Take that 4-day weekend. It's not business as usual. This is a very stressful time for everybody. I'm talking to my clients and their child's in the background very loud, and like, it's okay. Like, I don't mind. Go, you know, fill up her milk, grab her snack. Like, I'll be here. Like, no pressure. Like, just, we need to go with the flow and just be flexible. And that's, you know, part of live meetings. And I compare it to that a lot. When we're on site and when things happen, that's live meetings. You have to think on your feet, and suddenly something terrible goes wrong, but we're going to get through it, figure it out together. So it was almost taking those skills from doing all of this and just applying it to your personal life. And
Rita, that might be one of the most insightful things I've heard from an event planner since this started. This is exactly like a live meeting in terms of how you have to manage the unexpected. Wow, thank you for that. That was so insightful. So let me get into a hard thing. I know I said I'm going to start with the hardest thing, but this is the hardest thing personally. And then we'll start talking about, you know, the upswing, what we've all done since and what's been the most rewarding. So Kathy, I'm going to start with you, and it's a little going to put you on the spot, but maybe if I start with my own spot, it'll make you feel a little bit more comfortable. I remember early on, probably like a month in, you know, I had gone through the shock and awe. I had gone through the kind of thinking about the stabilizing. I applied for the Paycheck Protection Program. I had candid conversations with my team. You know, I too said right away to everyone, look, my number one goal is to make sure that we remain, but that might be out of my control depending on what the market does to react to online medical events. So all that stuff is done. You know, the kids are now a month into homeschool. My husband's transitioned to working from home. I got to tell you, there was like a week, and it might have even been closer to 2 weeks. I would close my office door, and for almost the whole day, every time I had a minute, I would cry, or I would be like so anxious, and I couldn't shake that anxiety. And it was like a culmination of what's going to happen, like globally, like what's going to happen, question mark, oh, an umbrella over my life, with me, with my family, with my work, with my passion, with my future, with friends, with everything. And I was there was a moment too that I felt like so isolated from everyone. All of us are in events. We're used to living our life, touching, hugging, kissing, connecting. And it was like so lonely for me. These video things, it's like I didn't know how many more video calls I could take. Kathy, did you ever have that? Did you ever have like that time where it was just like, I got to stay strong on the outside, but inside, this is really hard?
Yeah.
you just laughed.
Yes. Yes to all the above.
Yes.
We transparently, with the fact that my wife's mom was with us, there wasn't a lot of time to stop and to do that. So I kind of did things a little differently. I'm a yoga teacher, as well as whatever you want to call it is that we do.
Yeah.
So I put out a virtual yoga class 3 times a week for family, friends, colleagues, and I apologize I didn't circulate this to you guys. I'm happy to, just to show up on a Zoom yoga. And I was very touched that so many people participated, clients, family, colleagues, acquaintances. I just thought, if I'm feeling this pressure, and believe me, there were many times in my downward dog that if they could have seen close up, they would have seen the tears dripping onto the mat.
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel a little tied up just thinking about this.
Yeah.
Because I thought, March 1, I brought on my latest, my newest member to the family, and I thought, oh my God, she left another company to come with me, and here we are. And I prayed and I begged, please just help me get through this. So to deal with all of that, I felt the best solution for me was to just open and to give.
Yes.
And to realize that if I stayed in my head, I was going to go berserko. And with my 90-year-old mother-in-law, she deserved to have both of us fully present. And my wife is an English professor, so she had to pivot to virtual instruction. I am like Ted, I've been working remote for 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, so pivoting remote for us was not a difficult thing. For the environment in which I lived was a very difficult thing. So it was doing something of that nature to, I know it sounds very woo-woo-ish, but I found that that was the best way to get through those points, Sarah, to that extreme. Because if I wasn't, I would not. I'm not sure what would have happened if I didn't do something of that nature.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I know, it's hard to be vulnerable, but I believe that this podcast is designed, and this podcast is my version of your yoga, because it was like, what do I know how to do? I know how to talk, I know how to communicate, and I know how to bring people together. And I know that everybody has a story. And if it's just me telling stories with another person and we're the only two listeners, it's going to be fine, because it'll help me get, it'll help me get balanced.
So true.
And so I love that your idea of healing yourself was to help others find opportunities to heal themselves with, everything that yoga represents. So thank you for sharing that. Rita, you're so young and you have so much great energy. I remember working with you on some of the Natera programs, and I thought, like, this kid is a firecracker. Like, she's just full of ideas and full of energy. And how, knowing your personality, how did you find yourself in times of like sadness or isolation?
Oh, 100%. So, well, thank you. It's always been lovely working with you as well. Like Teri said, I'm a very positive person.
Yeah.
I like to be realistically optimistic, never silly with it. But optimism, keeping the team positive, that's always been my thing, which during something like this, knowing you're the rock that has to stay positive, and that pressure, like you mentioned, Kathy, that can be really difficult, because we were calling them kind of like COVID ruts, my friends and I, where you'd be like, oh, I knocked everything out today. This is going to be okay. We're going to get through it. You'd have 2 or 3 like awesome days in a row. You worked out, you made a fantastic dinner, but then you would just hit these lows, these like lulls, especially for people like, I never really worked from home for long periods of time before. Getting out was a really big deal for me. I live in a small apartment. So it was really an adjustment, getting out of your sometimes 2 to 3 day COVID rut and still having to put on that face. But I wasn't hiding it. And I thought that was really important to tell my team. Like, I was checking in with them on our team huddles, and I would just say, how are you doing? Like, are you having a good COVID day or a bad COVID day? Like, let's not even like talk about work for a few minutes. Like, we can talk about how many characters can go in the virtual exhibit hall later. Like, how are you just handling this day? And how are you handling the pressure? And I felt it very, very common. My girlfriends and other companies felt it. And I was very candid with them. I said, I'm having a low day. How's your day going? What's something great that happened? To try and get out of it. But it's hard, and I don't have anyone that I, have to take care of, or that I'm living with that I have to be responsible for. And I have a few friends like that and colleagues, and they almost felt bad because they said, why do I feel this way when other people have it significantly harder? And I said, yes, but you do need to focus on it sometimes too. And, focus on your mental health. You can't get anything else accomplished. You can't help others like Kathy's doing. Your mental health is really important. So yes, I had COVID lows, and I was candid, but tried to keep it positive when I could. But I think from when it started till now, there's been a huge shift. I think just the unknowing, the fear, the insecurity, all of that. It's obviously still there, but it's definitely gotten better. I think there's been a new shift, a little bit of optimism now in the industry, because we've seen it happen and people are getting through it. So I'm a big mental health person. Like, take that day, do the yoga, Kathy. I think that's great. You're teaching yoga classes. It's really like my mom.
I'll send everybody the link.
Yes, include us, please.
Yeah, give me a seriously. I can we're dog with you.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. I'd be honored.
Teri, let's move to you. I know you and I know I reached out to you in those darkest days for me to just be like, girl, could you pray for me? I don't know what's going on. So many times I was like saying to you, what do you think's going to happen? Like, if you had the crystal ball, but you were such an anchor for me too, because I knew I wasn't alone. I knew that there was someone else who was like experiencing this situation with their business, and that was a big thing for me to know that, at least at least we could be miserable together in not knowing, but maybe you can share with us, you know, how you've kind of gotten through some of those darkest times.
I tell you, and they've been dark. Again, I'm usually a really positive person. I always see the other side, because when you're presented with a challenge, to me, there's always a solution.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes it's not the solution you're looking for, the one that you like, but there is a solution.
Yeah.
So I felt, and I still feel every day that I'm going up that hill, that I have not crossed, gone ahead and moved over the hill to a better, positive 100%.
Yeah.
I wake up every morning, and instead of getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, like I usually do and starting to work, I stay and I read an article. I read this article. I look at recipes, and then I get out and then I start my day. But sometimes those days start really good, and then I don't know, halfway through, it's just like a bomb. It's like a bomb hit. And it's not, to me, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, you wake up and you're worried about finances.
Oh my gosh, sleepless nights.
Because you don't want to let anyone go, so you're worrying about the finances, and you're worrying about, how you're converting the live meetings to virtual meetings, but they don't have the same financial impact that the live meeting would have. And then convincing your exhibitors that, a virtual exhibit is just going to be as good. No, it's not going to be as good. So let's come up
we keep talking about that. Yeah.
Right. And then, today is great. Tomorrow is great. Then the next day is like, okay, I'm back to how am I going to make the money to continue the business? And I mean, this is something that I've been doing for years. It's not, I just didn't start in the industry yesterday. It takes all this time to get where I am. And then one little friggin' virus, damn it. And there you go. Down the hill. So.
Well, Teri, thank you, because I do know, I mean, this is part of you. I know it. I feel it every time we're together. And it comes through in your meetings. It's an extension of you. The meetings are an extension of you. So I thank you for sharing that. Ted, has it been different for you from kind of like the male experience in terms of you kind of maybe holding the role where you have to have things a little bit more together than your emotional counterparts, but has it been difficult at times? And then what have you done with that to get through?
Yeah, well, I think that, everybody has to have, I think I agree mental health is very important, right? So I think it's important for people to have a practice that they go through to maintain that. Kathy talked about yoga. I mean, people exercise, I think obviously is something that is good for people. Meditation can be good. Journaling can be good. I think any personal daily practice that you can utilize in order to get the worrisome thoughts out of your head onto some other medium where they can't do you so much harm is important. And so I think that's I think male or female, you have to if you're in touch with that and can sort of keep yourself monitor yourself and do things to if you have the tools and strategies to moderate your own mental health, I think it's important. And I think it's important to encourage other people to do the same thing. From a leadership perspective at the company, I think it was, again, one thing about, although I guess everybody in quarantine is a virtual company, but we always have the challenge of trying to make sure that we are monitoring people when we can't see them, right? It's a lot different when you go into an office and you can feel the vibe of the office. You can look at people and tell what's going on. We really have to intuit that. I mean, we're on a lot of video calls like this, but we also have to feel the vibe. You hear it through people's voices on the phone. You sense it in the tone of their emails. I mean, you have to get very adept at reading people's emotions when you're not in the same room with them. And so, I think that's as a virtual company, that's a skill that you develop. I think it was even more important now. And, we definitely got in the habit of like early on sending notes out, full company notes, basically like, hey, kind of, we're all in this together type of notes, and just, reassuring people that, and I'm sure that you guys all dealt with this too, right? Like, besides scrambling and trying to readjust to what was going on, you probably had to resell a lot of business that you'd already sold, right? So you had business.
Redirect it into a different model. We've had to change our business model.
Completely,
right.
yeah.
Right. So like you've got all this money that you've already secured that you're just trying to deliver on, and now you're turning around and no, you got to resell it. You've got, someone is providing a grant for a satellite symposia, and suddenly that meeting's gone virtual. And so you have to, that supporter that gave you that money wants to know, what are you going to do? Meanwhile, the society that you're working with hasn't figured it out yet, but they need, they're like, well, you got to get us, a revision on this proposal immediately, because the committees, we're afraid they're going to take the money away. And so, just talking about reselling all that work that you already did and scope changing all of that stuff.
And tap dancing, you're tap dancing constantly. You're tap dancing all around everybody. And
I'm so happy. Yeah, I'm so happy you mentioned that, because
tap dancing.
Yep. And it's reassuring people, not still knowing what the solution is, but having to say, there's a solution, it's going to be great, we're working on it, I'll have it next week, to all of your clients across, the summer is our busiest time for meetings. We'll easily do 10 core conferences, plus all the independent programming we were doing, trying to, figure out solutions for all of those, loop in all of your clients, resell them on the value of it, ensuring there really is true value to it for them too. That was really difficult, and something we're still working through now. So you're not even selling anymore. You're just reselling. And that's been really difficult for my team. And they're very hungry salespeople, and it's trying to get that shift there. So I like that you mentioned.
What's so interesting too about what you guys are talking about is it made it, I don't know about you, but it made me feel like they weren't living in the same universe. It made me feel like, wait a second, how are you're asking me to kind of tell you how I'll deliver information to healthcare providers, but I know that you all are not, you don't know how you're going to get information to healthcare providers with your reps and with everyone else. So you're asking me to deliver on a promise or a commitment or a service that none of us know how to get through right now. So it was very much, I think, all of us on this call can say, and Kathy, you probably can affirm, because, you are the relationship manager on the other side. A lot of it was relationships. A lot of it was Rita, you saying to people, look, you trusted me in the past, you got to trust me through this.
Yep.
Ted, you saying to people, PeerView's never let you down with delivering on precise content and programming. So we're not going to start now. Like, the virus hasn't changed our ability to do this. And I think that really, we almost had to start to trade in our relationships rather than the services we provided, because we're not new to this block. Like, we've been doing this a long time. And so, and I do have to say, on the other side, and I think I can speak for all of you, people did trust us, and they were right to trust us, because we did deliver and we continue to deliver. Well, I want to spend the last 10-15 minutes talking about that, talking about how have we begun to deliver. And, Rita, I know I'm breaking the order, but I want to go to you first, because right away, and Monday nights became something that I felt like was must-see TV for me, with the COVID and cancer care that PER put on. I hope I'm saying that right. It was PER, not OncLive, that put on that COVID and cancer care.
Yeah, so PER was hosting those. OncLive was also doing webinars, but those are the PER ones.
But that just became and continues to be, even, I host Monday night podcasts that are live, and I go back every time and listen to the COVID-19 that PER puts on, because you're delivering that information real time, and you're delivering it to a growing number. I think the last time I checked, it was like 3,500, 4,000 doctors had tuned in since the beginning. And it was so motivating for me to see that a company your size was saying, let's kind of tear down all the barriers and let's do what we know is right. And even if in the beginning we just do it on our own, people will come to see the value and then they'll start to sponsor, which is exactly what happened. People saw you living up to your commitments, building good quality programs, and they started to sponsor. What else is coming up that we need to keep our eye on from OncLive PeerView, PER, and what should we be expecting, let's say until SABCS time, what should we be expecting to see?
Yeah, for sure. So thank you for bringing that up with the webinars. That was the most important thing to us. We need to continue educating these doctors. They need this information. People are hungry for information. It needs to get out there while still respecting a lot of the KOLs and faculty's time that we're working with. But they jumped right on it, and we're super fortunate that they wanted to do these weekly, and it's a lot of people are now turning to them. So no pressure, of course, in a very pressurable time. But it's been really great and a really nice resource, and my clients and even docs we talk to have been really into those. So one of our big things internally, they have it on the walls as our core values, and it's our principles and all of that, but innovation and entrepreneurship. So anywhere that we can be innovating, we're trying to. This fall, we are partnered with a virtual meeting platform just to make it a little more interactive and more fun. We're going to have really cool offerings while still taking our clients, giving them white glove service, and making it as easy as possible for them to transition into that. That's been a really big focus for me. But we're innovating brand new programs all the time, whether it be changing up virtual ad boards or virtual workshops. We're hosting kind of like a talk show program coming up this fall. I'm really excited about.
Don't host it on Monday nights.
What's that?
Don't host it on Monday nights against my podcast.
No worries. We'll talk. I'll make sure we pick it that doesn't compete with anything with total health. But we have a lot of new podcasts, new videos, and a lot of the time we're talking to our clients and we're asking them. We're like, hey, where are you guys struggling? What areas can we help you in? Do you have this cool idea? Like, we can make it happen. And I think that's the beauty of our organization and the people I work with. Every single day, we're watching other webinars to learn more about what other people are doing. Luckily, we have that studio. We have these resources internally. So when we think of a cool new idea, so hopefully someone comes on as a guinea pig. Sometimes they don't want to, and we just get to do it. And, we have a lot coming up this fall. So whether it's workshops, ad boards, virtual programs, virtual conferences, it's going to be really busy, but it's going to be really exciting. And we keep saying we're always looking for the next big virtual idea. And I think we're going to find that from working with our clients. And you mentioned it before, Sarah, our clients trust us to deliver on this. And they know OncLive has, and we're a strategic partner for them. So maybe I don't have that new thing yet, but I'm sure it's coming up the pipeline.
And Rita, people can find you at OncLive.com and go to PER.com, correct?
Yep, that is correct.
Okay,
so
awesome.
OncLive, if you want anything on the non-CME side, education, interviews with KOLs and faculty. Our peer exchanges are really popular, some of our educational webinars. But if you're looking for your CME accreditation and those type of virtual conferences for now, that's going to be on the go to PER.com website.
Thank you. Thank you. Teri, same question for you. What can we expect from Medical Educator? What's things to look out for? And then how does someone looking for this information reach out and see what you're doing virtually?
So going back to not having all your eggs in one basket, and maybe sometime in the near future when the development teams of these websites that should not be complicated, but apparently it is, decide that we can open phase one of our educational resources, that would be a step in the right direction. So we plan on a parallel education future where we will continue to do live meetings. I don't think they're ever going to go away. People are dying to go to live meetings. They call me all the time and text me, when is the next live meeting? I said, whenever COVID lets us. So we've transitioned the New Orleans meeting and the California Cancer Consortium meeting to a fall date. So we have 3 consecutive fall live meetings. And if that doesn't happen, they will go virtual. So, and we're looking at other measures to make those exhibitors happy, other than the standard stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So
And is there a website we can go to for that?
right now our website is www.meccinc.com. That is the management and logistics side of it. It lists all our conferences, and we'll continue to list virtual. We're doing some other things with pharma. Our pharma friends have been very good to us. In about a week or so, we'll have a BMS product showcase. Hopefully we can continue to develop more of those, because everybody needs to get out there.
Listen, people still need cancer information, 100%. They still need information to treat their patients.
So we're looking at that, not just on the cancer side, but we're also looking at virtual meetings on the oral maxillofacial surgery.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, that's correct. You have
also on the
world-renowned
microscopic and robotic surgery side as well. So, you know, you just have to keep moving. I feel like if I ever felt like the hamster on the wheel, I think I'm the hamster on the wheel, and I'm overweight.
Yeah.
I don't seem to get things
right. The calories aren't being burned, but you're spinning on a wheel. Ted, talk to us about PeerView. What can we expect to see, and how do we see it? How do we access it?
You can access it at peerview.com to see any of our activities. You know, I think that over the rest of the year, you know, we have a lot of stuff in the pipeline that's going to be coming out. You know, a lot of it is virtual live meeting. You know, a lot of it is enduring material type of online activities. But I think we're all going to be pressed to, you know, Rita was talking about what's the next great virtual idea. You know, I think we all have to push ourselves to try to figure out what that is, right? Because everybody's going to get. You know, everybody, well, you know, first of all, there's the learner that we're trying to educate, but then there's the supporter that we're trying to satisfy at the same time, right? And so, and those two don't always have the same idea about what makes a great program. So, you know, our supporters are always very demanding with what's new, what's cool, what are you going to do for me that doesn't look like what you do for everybody else? You know, I want something bespoke. You know, I don't want your templated program that's rolling off the assembly line. And I think in virtual live, that's tough right now, right? Most of it looks like what we're looking at right now. It's a Zoom thing.
Yeah.
You know, so how do you make that more interactive? You know, how do you get, you know, not only make it interactive, but get the learners to actually engage in that, you know, not just sit back and want to just sit back and want to passively watch it, because then then it's not dynamic. You know, how do you get your faculty members to drive a meeting like that? You know, they're used to just going back and talking, and they're not exactly, you know, the greatest at getting their learners to engage and calling on people and driving that interaction. So,
but you know, it's funny that you're saying that, and I know I'm going to go over by a couple minutes, but I think it's worth it. It's funny that you're saying that, because it's like where expectations meet reality. You know, even if we think about our big meetings, Miami Breast or New Orleans Summer Cancer Conference, or some of the meetings we do, or, you know, Ted, all the meetings PeerView is at, these big 10,000 person meeting. You know, when you really think about the room, I'm just going to use, you know, a 2,000 person meeting. You think about a room of 2,000 people, you know, 1,970 of them are sitting consuming information. But somehow when we're doing something virtually, it's like the sponsor wants 2,000 people to all be engaged and conversational. It's like, but that's not how it is live. Right. So, you know, expectations are different. Have to meet reality that this is a consumer service. You have a thought leader presenting data changing or practice changing data, and someone is consuming that intellectually. So it's not this, you know, Google meeting where everyone's throwing around balls, and like, that's not what this ever was. Right. So I do think that we as meeting planners also have to almost coach the supporters back into the box, where we say, no, you trusted us before to deliver quality information that changes the way a doctor practices medicine, keep trusting us for that. Forget about the shininess. That doesn't matter. If the package is that you still want us to deliver information at a time where information is being interrupted, we can still do that. You know, like that's one of the things I've had to think about, that it isn't about the new and shiny. I almost have to coach them back into, no, it's about what's resonating. Like I get on the Monday night PER programs, there's nothing shiny about those. What's shiny is the data. It's the dialogue. And like that needs to be the star of the show, even beyond what it is we're doing. So I would encourage all of us to kind of stand firm in that we are a data delivery system. We're not a bells and whistles shop. So we will continue to meet that commitment of delivering that data so that the end user, who is not the doctor, who is the patient receiving the care, so that that person continues to get the best care that they can get because we intervened with education. So I do challenge all of us to kind of push back a little bit on that and say, no, we're not going to get more technologically dynamic in terms of what we look like, but you've got to still trust that this is kind of what we're here to deliver. And I'm telling you, I could do another hour with all of you. In fact,
That's
I
next
probably
Monday.
will invite you back to do another hour. But Kathy, I want to close with you. You know, you are the go-between, and very often you're the one that the vendor is saying, or the supporter is saying, we want the new and shiny. How do you say, or do you say to them, what we want to deliver to you is the consistent and relevant, and this is how we're going to do it? Like, how are you managing those expectations with SageRock, and then what's next for you guys as an organization?
The biggest area that we can see that the clients are always striving to get to is some level of uniformity among all the offerings. And that tends to be the biggest challenge that we come up against when I communicate with each of you, or the team communicates with each of you individually as the MedEd entity. Is one MedEd entity might be doing this, the other might be doing this, the other might be doing this, the other might be doing this. The challenge that becomes, I'm going to play devil's advocate for just a moment, the challenge that becomes to the supporter side is creating some level of communication back to the individuals that are creating the firewall for them to come to you and say, guys, we trust you implicitly. We know what you all are delivering is exactly what our docs need. I can guarantee you right now, each of you and anyone else that would be listening, I can guarantee you that that is not the concern of the supporter side, what you're delivering. It's not the concern. The biggest concern is how do they communicate the value that is being asked for that experience, okay? From where we sit, I can wholeheartedly, unequivocally say that's our biggest challenge, is being able to say to a client, you want to attend this meeting, and at this point in time, there's very few that haven't pivoted to virtual. And I'm going to send blessings out to Teri, because I know she's just clamoring to have that face-to-face. And I know those are milestone landmark events that she has, that everybody does set their clocks by, right? But when it comes to when you pivot, being able to communicate a checklist almost of what it is that's being offered and how that supporter is going to be able to see that return, because they have compliance behind them. They have legal behind them. They have medical review behind them. So your supporter that you may be going to repeatedly hits a firewall. What's happening back here is what's they're hitting, and they come back to you guys and say, what are we getting for our money? What's the bang for the buck?
And if you don't understand the value, if we don't understand the value or don't see the value, how can you sell it?
Right.
Right.
And one of the things I wanted to
go ahead, Kathy.
Just one of the things I want to put out to this team, and I think it might be something that could be very interesting for us to do, is even within the meetings industry, how many decades have we strived to create levels of consistency
Yes.
for what's delivered at a live meeting, right? Within the exhibits industry, how many years have we strived to make something consistent so when someone walks into an exhibit hall, they can expect this, 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 and this?
Yeah.
Perhaps it's time for us to coalesce and put our brains together
I love
and
that.
create some level of consistency
I love that.
that is bare bones.
Well,
I
you know,
would love to do that with you guys.
yeah, and I think the good news is you've got, you know, 4 companies here that I think all of us would be, you know, I'm speaking for Rita, who's speaking for a big company, but I think I'm speaking for them too. You know, we are quality companies and we do have quality work. And even though we do it differently, you know, education is competitive to a point, but I see a PER program, I market it. You know, ask Teri how many times I reshare and share her. You know, Ted, with PeerView, when clients and customers say, do you know someone who does this particular type of thing? I'm like, PeerView, call Courtney. So, I mean, we are competitive to a point, but at the end of the day, especially at this point, you know, it's time, I think, that all of us kind of rally together to say we are consistent with what we offer and we want to communicate that consistency to our customers who all of us share. We all share the same customer.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
yeah, I would love that. It's like season 1, episode 2 of medical education.
Right.
We definitely need to do that.
And there's nothing wrong in collaboration. On the contrary, we're learning from each other.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm forgive me for who said it earlier. I think it might have been you, Teri, that said that you look at what PER is doing, you look at what Teri's doing, you look at what PeerView's doing, right? We take bits and pieces to create our own personality.
Yeah.
We are all virtuosos here, right? Our whole team, and that's one of the things that we consistently do. I'm getting very passionate about this because I got to tell you, it's something that it's the key is for our supporters to see that we have a unified voice as well.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, we want to support them. And whoever, Sarah, you said patience. I was reading down here earlier, your question that Courtney said is, why do you do what you do? At the end of the day, for me personally, it's patience.
Yeah.
It's not my life science customer, it's patience.
For
We're
all of
all
us.
patients at some point, right?
Yeah.
We all have been hit with life sciences. We've all have been hit with COVID-19 in some way or another.
Yeah.
Right? We're all in the same boat. Sorry, I'll back down now.
No. I love it. I love it. And I think you just threw a carrot out for each one of us. And it really is going to be up to us to kind of take it and move it into what it could be, because we are all in it for patients. But we're all in it too, because this is what we love. We love to do this. I mean, let's face it, any one of us right now could be thinking, like, you know, as Ted was saying early, maybe we learn a language or an instrument. All of us could be thinking of what else we could be doing right now and, you know, say goodbye to all of the innovation and craziness we have to be dealing with and get a different kind of job. But we're all in this, and I think it's because, I know it's because we all love it. And we love what we do. We love to see the impact. We love to hear the testimonials back from people. So, you know, I take that challenge, and don't be surprised if you hear from me reaching out to each one of you and say, what can we do to kind of unify, to standardize as an industry who we are, what we represent.
Let's get together another time.
Absolutely.
Off the record, and let's work on.
Let's do this seriously.
Yes. Yes.
Standardization is the biggest thing people are asking for, and I would love to pick your brains on this seriously.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. We've got to do this, kids. We've got to do this.
Yeah, we are going to do it.
I need you people. I need all of you.
Let's do it. I'm serious. I need a pump of new, fresh scent, imagination, creativity. I need to blow off this negative space. That
this
just
is a great, this is
have
great.
this shroud around me.
Do it as a happy hour. We'll have a happy hour.
The happy hour. Medical
There you go.
happy hour.
We'll each have a
Okay,
cocktail.
I'm
We
fine.
get the faces flowing. It'll be
I'm
good.
fine. I'm fine.
Bring their own booze.
Okay, everyone, I wish we could keep on going, but this is a podcast and we got to stop. So I just want to say thank you to all of you. Rita, Teri, Kathy, I've worked directly with the 3 of you. Ted, I'm so glad to now know you. I know your team and they're phenomenal. And so I look forward to working more directly with you. I do think that this, Kathy, you threw out something, and I think that we will pick it up because our industry needs it and our people need it. No matter what you define that people as, our people need it. So I think we're all on board with how we can make this work. You know, the devil's in the details, but if we stay committed to a strong outcome, we will get it done. And I really loved spending this time. This has been my favorite podcast. I loved spending this time with all of you. And I'm here for all of you at any time. Bad days, text me. Yoga time, text me. Ted, if you just want to like blow up some steam, call me. And Teri, as always, I love you like a sister. And I'm so grateful for you. And I know that all of us will get through better and stronger than we entered this craziness with. And so I thank you for your time tonight, and I look forward to the incredible things we do together as a team in the future.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yoga.
Be
Next
safe.
time, drink.
Good night.
Yes.
Good night.